Autism Quality of Life Podcast, Episode 1.
So we have this massive video library of what it looks like for different individuals on the spectrum performing exercise.
All right. Welcome to the Autism Quality of Life Podcast. I'm really excited to share a bit about today's guest with you. So he is the founder of Autism Fitness, and he's an exercise physiologist with an extensive clinical and educational background in applied behavior analysis. So he spent over a decade developing fitness and adapted physical education programs for the autism population, and he offers Autism Fitness Seminar Series, consulting sessions, and the forthcoming Autism Fitness Certification Program. He's also the founder of Stronger Than You, a unique fitness equipment company, and lives in New York. So who is this fine fellow? I'm pleased to introduce you to Eric Chessen. So Eric, please fill in any gaps from that introduction and share a bit more about you with the Autism Quality of Life community.
Hi, that was extensively gap-free, actually. That covered all of the professional criteria that needs to be covered in a bio, I think, at least for me. And thank you for having me on, too. I really like being able to do the podcast.
Okay, well, let's get into the questions then. So if you can tell us a bit about Autism Fitness and really what makes your work unique.
Sure. So I started about 12 years ago as a personal trainer working with general population, and I was attending graduate classes in general psychology, and I did not like the program that I was in. It was heavily research-based, and I am totally a clinician. I like to be doing stuff. I respect research. I absolutely understand that it's necessary. I just want other people to do it. Of course, I have been, and then of course, thinking back, I have been part of some research programs as well. So to disclose, I have had clinical roles in research programs, so it's not entirely hypocritical. Anyway, enough of a long-winded introduction to that. So I had a classmate who said, hey, I know you're a personal trainer. Would you be interested in working in this program in New York City with teenagers on the autism spectrum? And at the time, this was not a career thing. People ask, oh, do you have someone in your family? Was it this lifelong pursuit of yours or goal to build something for the autism population? No, not the way it happened. Everything was organically accidental, if that's a phrase or if that's fair to say. And so I decided over the course of a bus ride to the train station, she convinced me to apply to and start working in this program. And at the time, I was still a very green, very new personal trainer. And here I was also working with this population and undergoing very intensive training in ABA. And what I started to realize through the lack of information that I could find was that there were very few physical fitness programs developed specifically for the autism and special needs population. So the most I found was an article or maybe two that said physical fitness is important for all populations, the autism population included. So yay, great, thank you for that vague piece right there that we can do nothing with. And as I continued to work with the program, I realized that this was an extremely underserved demographic. Really, there weren't anybody, at least from what I could find, developing really good fitness programs for this population. I think that's for two reasons. So I've met many fitness professionals who want to work with the population but don't have background or don't have experience working with the autism community, and so don't have the necessary technical information on behavior interventions and positive behavior support. And then on the other side, I have met and worked with some great professionals on the autism and behavior therapy and therapeutic and, of course, parental side also, who don't know what constitutes an effective fitness program. And the only reason that my programs work is because I just happen through a series of life and career events to get training on both sides. So I can speak both fitness language, and then I can speak to the ABA or behavior therapy side of things. And what I did was began to meld the two into this ball of methodology. So I took what I knew was effective on the exercise side of things, with respect to programming and exercises and how to progress and regress stuff, which is really, really, really important. And then the implementation of those. So how do you teach it to this population, especially because most of the individuals that I've worked with over the last 12 years do not necessarily find exercise and physical activity fun to begin with. And one thing that I will mention now that I'm talking and thinking at the same time, which is sometimes a dangerous combination with me, is that I never, it's important, I think, for me to note that I've never cherry-picked my athletes. So I've never turned away an individual. I've never said, no, well, I can't work with this child or this young adult. The other part of that is also the age range varies a lot with my athletes. So my youngest athlete right now is 10, and my oldest is 55. So I'm not just working with kids. It's not just fitness programs for kids. It's fitness programs for the whole of the autism population, or at least as many athletes as I can work with currently.
So why is exercise so important for individuals on the spectrum? And can you share a bit about how exercise affects them and maybe what some of those benefits are?
As we know, exercise, the blanket statement being exercise is important for everybody, but what does that actually mean? So in order to optimize our daily life activities and what we're able to do, whether it's standing up or sitting down, walking up a flight of stairs, carrying something, putting something on a shelf, all of these things that we need to do on a daily basis, physical fitness, when done right, is going to enhance all of those things. Also, metabolism, and there's evidence to suggest that there's a good body of evidence to suggest that exercise is very important for cognitive functioning. And then when we get into programming, we can add, it's not necessarily going to improve social functioning when there's a deficit, but it provides us with opportunities to socialize. And that's when everything else is accounted for. So physical fitness programs, particularly for this population, are crucial. Not just, oh, this is a good thing, not just, oh, this would be nice, but crucial because the majority of athletes that I've worked with over the past decade have had some type of deficit. Strength, stability, we talk about low muscle tone. We talk about, the core, and the core means everything and nothing at this point. It's kind of a catch-all phrase, but we see that in comparison to their peers, individuals with autism tend to have less strength and motor skills. And that's both on account of the disorder and then when they get older, because they're not actively engaging in what I call playground skills. So we don't see a lot of robust physical activity commonly in this population. So the way that neurotypical kids will play on a playground and go out when they're allowed to, and when they do have access to recess, the autism population are less inclined to do that. And the third component here, so you have the initial deficit from the autism diagnosis or having autism. Then on top of that, you have less physical activity seeking, or when you do, because I've had people tell me, oh, this kid runs, back and forth. They're really active. But if you really break it down and you really look at it, they're just doing the same thing over and over. They're doing a lot of it, but it's not necessarily functional. It might serve the purpose of sensory input or something like that, but in terms of enhancing their physical ability, just wandering around in a circle, even if they're running around in a circle, which is very common with some of the individuals I've worked with, it's not really doing anything. You're not getting better at it. It's not serving a purpose that will generalize outside of that one situation. So they may be really active, or there may be some hyperactivity, but that hyperactivity is not enhancing any other part of their life. So what we want to do is give them more things to do, and we want those things to be functional or have some carryover into their real life in some appropriate way.
Okay.
And then the third component. Thank you. That's the greatest compliment I can ever get of all the feedback that I get about my programs, is that they make sense. That's really it. That's what makes me. That's what vindicates me the most. The third component of that is access to appropriate programs, of which there is very little, unfortunately, right now. So I'm here in New York, and I'll get emails from people all over the United States, and then in Canada and all over the world, asking, "Oh, it must be so great in New York. Do you have other programs like this around?" There aren't a lot of programs like this worldwide, even in New York or in the United States. I know of maybe 7 or 8 dedicated programs or inclusive programs for this population. So that's certainly something that needs to be taken into account, and something that I'm trying to change through Autism Fitness. So you have these 3 things here of motor and strength deficits, and movement and motor planning deficits as a result of having autism, then a lack of seeking out physical activity, and then a lack of programming. So you have 3 things working against this population as far as their access to physical fitness programs. So then when I get my athletes, by the time that they're 17, 18, 20, 25, 50 in some instances, they've had that many years of not moving or not moving well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you did a really great job at kind of describing the problem. So individuals with autism really not having much exercise initially incorporated into their lives, and so how that could be problematic for them. So what kinds of things are you currently doing and down the road aiming to do with your business in order to change that?
So when I started Autism Fitness, or started working with the autism population, and then building Autism Fitness, initially it was like any other trainer or professional, just building my clientele and having my athletes whom I worked with on a daily basis. And then as I started to put a methodology together, over time, thinking about, okay, how was I putting together programs? Because what I was doing seemed to be effective in as much as my athletes were beginning to move better, were getting stronger. And the 2 things that the only 2 things that I ever guarantee about my programs are, number 1, my athletes will start moving better, they will get stronger, and they will move better. And the second thing is that we will find some aspect of the fitness programming that is reinforcing or enjoyable for them. Because those are the only 2 things I know that can happen. So when we see a bullet-pointed list of attributes from a program where it says we'll develop self-esteem and self-actualization, and we'll walk through walls and be able to, it's nice to have all that there, but what does it mean for each individual to socialize or to have self-esteem? These are things that are difficult to quantify or qualify rather all of the time. So we have to be careful with saying a fitness program or any type of program is going to do all these things. It could, and it might, but I don't know, even if it does, I don't know if that's going to be 6 days or 6 months or, in some cases, 6 years. Yeah, I have no idea. I can get a sense of an idea within a couple months, but I can't claim that outright in the beginning, so I don't. But I do know that my athletes will move better, and will find some way to get them to enjoy it. So what I'm doing now, in addition to working with my athletes 6 days a week, is taking the methodology that I've developed, which I call it the PAC profile, not because I wanted some acronym to be able to say during interviews, but really what we're doing in fitness programming, and this is for any individual, but particularly with this population, we're looking at the physical. So that's P is physical. What can the individual do? So with my go-to activities, so we have our hurdle steps, we have our squats, we have our medicine ball throws, we have our fitness rope swings, we have our jumps, we have our bear crawls. In each of those exercise situations, to what level can they perform that activity? So that's where we're figuring out where to progress and regress things. Make it more challenging, make it simpler. So that's our physical. We account for that. Adaptive, which is really, really important for this population. So that's our A, is adaptive. How motivated are they to perform physical activity in general, and then that specific activity? How much do we have to incentivize that? So if I have Adam, for example, and Adam will only step over 3 hurdles, and then by the 4th hurdle, he's wandering off. Well, how do we incentivize him to step over the 4th hurdle and then the 5th hurdle after that? So we have to build up his tolerance to and eventually enjoyment of, sorry, I have a cat climbing up my leg, his enjoyment of that particular activity. So the adaptive component lets us know how much do we have to program for any particular behavioral issue, or if our athlete is really motivated, how can we take that and really build the program around them? My programs are individualized as far as reinforcement. From a physical perspective, they very much look the same. All of my athletes are doing the same exercises. It's just to what degree progressed or regressed. So that our adaptive component is going to tell us what we need from a behavioral perspective. And then the C in that PAC is cognitive, and that tells us about learning styles. Do we have more of a kinesthetic learner who really needs some hands-on help with that particular activity, or do we have more of a visual learner where we can just demonstrate the activity and provide a visual cue? And it'll vary from activity to activity also. But whenever a program is not working, I can guarantee that one of those 3 components is left out. So it might be that from a physical perspective, that exercise is too challenging for an individual. From an adaptive perspective, maybe there's too much going on with that activity and they get frustrated with it, or it's not incentivized enough. Because when something is new or novel, we can't expect our athletes to immediately just do it or just enjoy doing it. So we have to build in some type of reinforcer. And the example that I give, when I take some of my athletes out to the playground in when it actually gets warm in New York in the spring and summer, we'll go out to the playground and I'll take all the equipment out. So we'll have the hurdles and the sand bells and the Dynamax balls and the spot markers and the cones. The difference between the autism population and the neurotypical population is as soon as I place that stuff down on the playground, I get kids just gravitating towards it like a magnet, because children naturally want to play and they want to explore. So they're starting to check this stuff out. For my athlete on the autism spectrum, that's not necessarily the case. So they may touch a cone once and then start wandering off. So we have to build in a way for them to be focused and also to enjoy that activity. So that's the major difference. As far as fitness, in addition to the deficits between working with the autism population and working with the neurotypical population. So we have to always account for that adaptive skill. And then the cognitive component just tells us about how we're teaching. That tells us how we're going to be coaching that particular athlete with that particular exercise. So when everything is going really well, then all 3 of those are being accounted for, either consciously or otherwise. When they're not going well, I can guarantee one of those is not being satisfied appropriately.
Cool. Thank you for going through the PAC profile a bit further and explaining what all of those components mean. So I know that you also run seminars and do some consulting. Would you mind explaining what that looks like?
Sure. So the autism fitness seminar that I do, I also do in-services for schools, particularly for their adapted PE programs. Sometimes schools don't even have adapted PE programs, and you get the special educators who are trying to run the adapted PE programs. And I think the biggest the biggest conceptual change that I make with programming is taking them from a sports-based program to more of a movement-based program. So I have a section in the seminars and in my presentations titled Fitness versus Sports. So the misconception as far as adapted PE is that it should mimic what goes on in a lot of general PE, which are team sports based. And this is something that just came about in the last decade or two, where there was a heavy sports influence on physical education. The problem with that, if we go back to a lot of the physical deficits of individuals on the autism spectrum, is that they don't have the fundamental gross motor skills to participate meaningfully in sports-based programs. It just doesn't make sense from a movement perspective. So you can dress a kid up like a soccer player. You can put soccer balls and nets on the floor. It doesn't mean that they will automatically have the skills, number one. And number two, it doesn't mean that those skills are the most important ones to focus on. Also, when you're working with a group of kids, you might have one or two who are motivated to participate, to the best of their ability. The majority of them probably won't. So if you're looking at that as your twice a week adapted physical education program, you really have to ask, take a stopwatch or a timer to it. How much physical activity are they getting? So the question that really needs to be answered is, what do you say is happening versus what is actually happening? Because I can call my program astronaut training for the autism population. It doesn't matter what's actually happening in those sessions. So I would rather take those 45 minutes and really work on those motor and movement skills. And we can turn it into a game, but most of the time we're not even exploring that point just yet. The initial goal is just get them moving to the best of their ability right now and program for that. And that's where we get into our exercise selection with progressions and regressions. How challenging do we have to make this? But more often the case is how simplified do we have to make this so the athlete is meeting that exercise or that activity with success. So in the seminar series, what we break down is how to assess, first of all. So that PAC profile is an assessment. I take the same exercises that we're going to use in programming, and I assess the athlete with each one of those exercises, and we say, all right, well, where are they right now with a medicine ball push throw? Where are they with jumps? Where are they with a bear crawl? And most of the time, it's their first time doing a lot of these exercises, so you have to figure out where they're at. More importantly than that, again, is the adaptive component. So how motivated are they to participate? If I go through a 45-minute or an hour-long assessment, and we've only done 3 or 4 exercises, I can almost guarantee that adaptive functioning is pretty low, and they get really off task, and they did not want to participate that one day. But it's a starting point, and it's going to change. So you don't take it and you say, okay, this is our stone tablet of what they can do and can't do. This is what they could do or were willing to do today, and that's a really important distinction. Can versus won't. So I have some individuals who can perform a particular exercise, but they're not motivated enough to right now. So I can't legitimately say that they are not able to do it. I just didn't see it yet. So in the seminar series, a lot of it is developing appropriate programming for both individuals and groups, because a lot of it is for adapted PE programs where you're going to have 5 or 6 or 8 or maybe even 10 individuals in a fitness setting. So how do you account for that? And coming back to the fitness versus sports idea, if you're doing sports, there's a lot of idle time, because you're trying to explain to one individual, kick it into there or shoot the basket, and everybody else is standing around. Whereas I would like to take that time and have everybody moving at the same time. Of course, taking appropriate breaks and stuff like that. With fitness versus sports, the second part of sports activities that I don't like for this population, generally speaking, is that sports are very abstract. And when you're taking a population that does not do well with abstract concepts and then trying to assign meaning to it, if we think about it, taking a basketball, shooting it into a basket, scoring a point, only has any relevance to us because we understand that it's representational of something else. So scoring a point is good. We win. That's good. Scoring a point doesn't mean anything outside of the meaning we assign to it. Winning doesn't mean anything in that context outside of the meaning that we assign to it. So I wonder why we would even bother to try to teach, scoring a point and, all these things that, look, some of my athletes, plenty of my athletes could understand that conceptually if we taught it. But my thing is, why bother even teaching that when we have more important life skills that we can be developing during the fitness session? And that's just from the cognitive perspective. From the physical perspective, no, this kid can't raise 4 pounds overhead yet. Let's focus on that first. So from a movement perspective, and that's why it's important to look at this from multiple perspectives. Also, me, the fitness professional, I'm looking at it like this athlete needs to get stronger. I don't care whatever else is going on. And I've had some athletes in the past, and I do have some athletes now that also play extracurricular sports. I have a swimmer. I've had athletes who also play baseball. I'm not saying that it should be restricted, especially if they enjoy doing that other exercise. But we always want to go from, particularly with movement, we always want to go from general to specific. So kicking a soccer ball or shooting a basket or hitting is not going to, any of these sports specific movements are not going to make an individual stronger. They might make them better at that particular activity, but it's not going to make them generally stronger. But focusing on general strength and motor planning can enhance those other skills. So my swimmer, for example, who is now turning 13, we haven't done any swim specific programming, whatever that would look like. We're just getting him stronger. So we're going through all the same exercises that I would do with any of my athletes. He's doing squats, he's doing overhead presses, he's doing his bear walks, and then I get a report back. And that was not, my focus was not his swimming prowess. It was everything that I saw as deficits in strength and motor planning and stability. And all of a sudden he's swimming better also. So the general will go to the specific, but specific doesn't go to the general. So from a cultural perspective, we're very big on sports, particularly team sports. I just want people to recognize that sports are not the top of the pyramid. They're a branch on a tree. And the roots and the trunk of that tree are general physical activity and play. So we need to meet those first, particularly with the autism population.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Eric, what are you most looking forward to pertaining to your business for this upcoming year, since we're about to go into 2017?
Yes, looking at doing the Autism Fitness Seminar in some new territories around the U.S. and beyond. And then I am working on the Autism Fitness Certification Program for other fitness professionals and professionals in the autism world also, who are really interested in developing programs like this one. So that's going to be a rather comprehensive program that I'm working on now. And the seminar series, check the website if people sign up for my newsletter. I always update my newsletter people first about upcoming seminars. Coming in January 14th, I'll be in Boca Raton, Florida. And then, wait, I can remember this. Let's see, recall. Then I will be in Annapolis, Maryland in April. And I think there's one in between there, too. There's one in February. Anyway, if you go to autismfitness.com, there's one on there also. And San Diego. That's right. Okay, San Diego in February as well.
All
That's
great
my
locations.
escape. Yes, well, I don't think I didn't have some hand in planning out where it would be during the most horrendous months here in New York. But the seminar series is great because it's very hands-on too. So it's not just me lecturing as much as I can talk, but it's really hands-on learning. So we go through the assessments, we go through the programming, we go through the what if this, because I never present the scenario of everything is going to be fine and everything's going to be great and every athlete is going to automatically love this stuff, because that's not the reality. So we go through, what happens when the wheels fall off, because inevitably the wheels fall off, which is fine. We just have to know what to do and what is going to be most beneficial for that individual in that situation.
Great. So our audience can learn more about the seminar dates on your website. Are there also any other ways that they can learn more about you through social media?
You can find me on Facebook. It's Eric Chessen, and the Autism Fitness page is Autism Fitness Workouts. My YouTube channel has a lot of really good video. I try to update that on a regular basis, and that's youtube.com/the Autism Fitness. And if you're interested in more about the programming side of things and the assessment, autismfitnesstoolbox.com. That's a product that I took 5 years to develop, and I'm really happy with it, and it's growing. It continues to grow. So it's all the programming concepts, how to assess, developing a program, and then a huge video library of a bunch of my athletes. So what it looks like when one athlete performs a squat or a push throw or an overhead press versus another athlete. And what I intend to do with that in the future is have a lot of people, perhaps some people listening or watching right now, contribute video to that also. So we have this massive video library of what it looks like for different individuals on the spectrum performing exercise.
Very cool. Okay, well, I'll be sure to post all those resources in the show notes as well, so we can pass those along. So do you have a quote or a parting piece of guidance or advice that you'd like to leave the Autism Quality of Life community with today?
I think that what I want to convey most is that fitness is a gateway to optimizing other areas of life and well-being, and it shouldn't ever be looked at as an add-on. It's an essential. So, fitness sessions, and getting a trainer or getting into a program are sometimes looked at as a luxury, but it's really a necessity. So my goal is to really make it accessible to as many individuals as possible.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing more about what you do with Autism Fitness with our audience. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Teri.
Hi there. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you've gotten a lot of value from today's show. It would be great if you could share this episode with family and friends, and also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. To learn more about today's guest, you can visit our website at www.autismqualityoflife.com. Also on our website, you can find links to our social media pages and our YouTube channel. Sign up for the Autism Quality of Life newsletter to receive exclusive content and bonus interviews. Thanks again for joining us on our mission to improve quality of life for teens and adults with autism. We'll catch you next time.